Hello, my name is Beth McDonald Stone and I'm an avid knitter and knitwear designer coming to you from Bermuda. Hope everyone's well. I hope everyone had a great couple weeks. I do come to you every 2 weeks, so that's my reference point. Um, what's going on now? Easter's over. I've just put away all the lovely stuff for that. It was fun. There was some kites, not that many this year. There was a lot that were really, really high above our house, so I couldn't photograph them for you. But there was that fun one in the park across the way here. That was a whale, and it was three-dimensional and flying low. And so hopefully I'll put the Instagram post, the sort of video I took in at the end here. It was really cool, and it was mesmerizing. And the way that the whale kite moved was very very cool, very whale-like, and what I would imagine. And I think really ironic because it's at this time of the year that the whales are passing Bermuda. I think they pass seasonally. Migration? Do whales, is migration for whales? I don't know. Anyways, they pass this time of year. There's been a lot of sightings. My husband and son saw some just standing on the porch right here. I never see them. I guess even when I walk along the South Shore, which is where you can really see them really easily, the South Shore and North Shore. We're close to the South Shore. And I never see them. I think I'm so into whatever I'm listening to and just in la la land. But yeah, anyways, there's been a lot of whale sightings. So I just thought that whale kite was really cool. Yeah, and my son is now finishing high school and he's got his big month of IB exams. He'll be thrilled when that's over. I'll be thrilled when that's over. I didn't do well in exams, and to think this is a 2-year course that basically culminates in exams for 80 to 85% of your grade, it kind of is, that's just too much for me to bear. So yeah, I got to keep my mouth shut around Oliver with my fear of exams. He seems to take it in stride. I hope that stride continues for this whole month. He's only had one. He's away right now having another. He's got a third this afternoon, and then it just comes and goes for the next month. It's sort of, I think it's quite painful torture. So that's that. So yeah, otherwise just ticking along here. Thankfully it's not gotten too hot, so it's the perfect time to knit and sit outside and enjoy the weather, enjoy the view, enjoy the birds and all that. So yeah, so that's my rambling to begin with. This week, I'm going to just basically talk to you about, I have finished a lot of projects. It's been basically a month since I've reviewed my projects with you. So a lot has been finished. 2 weeks ago when I had the little quick Easter one with episode with the tulip tunic, sorry. I didn't talk much about what I was working on just because I was in that in-between of just endless stockinette or endless whatever of body, sleeves, whatever, sort of nothing really to show. I've come through that, thankfully. It's really cool. I find I can get overwhelmed with this top here. I wanted it to be really quite long so that it was really easy to tuck into pants, skirts, shorts, whatever. So I was knitting 13 inches of stockinette on a pretty, small gauge, 24 stitches per inch. And it can get really daunting, because it's like 13 inches. You're like, oh my gosh. So I've mentioned before, but I set myself daily goals of what I want to complete knitting wise every day. And then I have another project that's I treat myself as my reward project so that I can knit my reward if I get through what, my goals for the day. And that's really cool actually, because I'm really goal oriented. I really like structure in my day. I've talked about how I have a proper sort of design work that's midday. Then I have sort of putting in mileage, evening work in front of the TV. And then I have my treat is sort of what I call the late afternoon one, which is usually a fun sock. And it is this time, and it was pretty much throughout the whole last month. So yeah, so I find that really helps. So I've kind of told myself I'm knitting another one of these, which I'll talk more about in a minute, but I'm now, back to the body, it's top down, and I've got 13 inches of endless stockinette. So I just kept telling myself, do 2 inches a day and then call it quits and move on to something fun. And that really works. And while, yeah, so it's going to be 6.5 days. That's cool. 6.5 days. Give it 7 a week. That's fine. No big deal. It's just to know that there is like light at the end of the tunnel or a completion date. And then you can kind of enjoy it. And then I actually really do enjoy just stockinette, and I can get into a lovely fast rhythm, especially if the yarn is a defined sort of round plump circle. And then I can just, Luna and I had a little talk before this, and she was not to bark, but she has forgotten. Anyways, so yeah, so I could just get into a groove, and then those 2 inches do fly by. I could be talking, I could be daydreaming, I could be doing anything, and it just kind of goes and goes and goes. So that's my little tip for today. If you're overwhelmed by endless amounts of whatever, fill in the blank, doesn't even have to be knitting, break it down, make it easy, step by step. So, okay. So that's a lot of rambling. Let's just get into it. Okay, so this is my big project that I'm working on right now. This is called the Mango Tee. It started because I was pulling out t-shirts and stuff. It was getting warmer about a month ago. And I pulled out one of my favorite t-shirts, and it's really old and it's getting really thin and kind of losing a little bit of shape on the neckline. And it's from Mango, and I just love it. And I was sort of like, oh, Beth, be careful. Like, don't, do anything rough with it. Don't fool around what's that expression? Horsing around with Luna, very easily I could rip it. It's gotten so thin, but it's at that perfect thinness where it's just so soft and so drapey. Anyways, so I was looking at it, I'm like, this would be the easiest shape to use to model after a knitted t-shirt. And so I did. And this is my first one, which I'm wearing, and I'll stand up and hopefully you can see it. And you can see how I like to wear it with like it tucked into my skirt, and it's got a fun cuff here that is sort of, it's not snug, like it's not like sucking in on my skin, but it's very fitted, but otherwise it's very large. So knitting 2 inches a day is kind of significant because there's a good amount of stitches, but that's totally cool. It's top down, it's kind of a contiguous design, really easy, really fun, and super easy to customize to your size, because basically you do the neckline, same neckline as for every size. You can make it smaller by just adding more rows after when you pick up afterwards, but basically the neckline stays the same, and basically you're just doing increases in the round down the shoulder. And if you want it smaller or longer, you just increase or decrease the increases here. So the great thing is if you don't really get gauge, it'll be so easy to follow. And then the rest is just lengths that, you would figure out. I'll give guides to the size of the arm opening, but if you have particularly very narrow upper arms or sort of, and remember, this is oversized. This is a drop sleeve shoulder sweater. So the armhole opening is halfway down your arm. So if you have any muscles, which I have none, and you want a larger, cuff, no big deal. You just make the armhole a bit deeper. So it's a great construction, really customizable, really easy to knit, and really easy to wear. So I've worn this quite a few times, and I actually, like I said, I'm knitting another one. Oh, okay, before I get into that, sorry. I'm wearing this, knitting another one, and I have a third that I want to knit too. Not so much, well, because I wanted it to sort of, like, I really would like a whole bunch of these in my wardrobe. I could see myself just really wearing these, like, in the summer. And especially if they're made in yarn that's cellulose or summer appropriate. I can't wear any form of wool, even if it's blended with cotton. I can't do that in the summer. It's too hot, it's too humid. And sorry about that. That was the cat across the street who knows that Luna can't get to her, and she likes to shake it and basically tease Luna. So Luna is now out in the back eating a rawhide, and hopefully that'll keep her occupied for a while. Anyways, so back to this. Yes, I would love a ton of these tops. I think these could be my everyday top for the summer. I also would like to knit them in my favorite sort of different summer yarns, because I think it's interesting to see how different ones wash and wear. And like I said, I'm a bit of a sweaty Betty, especially in the summer. I can be in the winter too, but sweater for sure. And I would need to wash it in the height of the summer between wears. And so some of the yarns, like, you know, my favorite Sandnes Garn Line or the Tin Line would work for this version. It's machine washable and dryable, and it works like a champ. The one that I'm also knitting, the second one I'm knitting, is also knitting, and I keep on doing this, I'm getting ahead of myself, but the other one is also a wash and wear yarn, which I'll talk to you about in 2 seconds. This one is actually knitted with silk yarn, Bourette silk. I haven't looked too deeply into the washability. I would imagine that Bourette silk is more hand wash and lay flat to dry, which is cool. And I love the feeling of it. It's very light. I do find silk as a whole can be quite hot. You know, like silk long underwear, and I would never buy a silk summer dress because I'll just perspire through that. But this does feel very airy. So the hand-dyed yarn, this sort of turquoisey blue, I found when I was in Alaska, of all places, on the Grocery Girls cruise. And that was really fun. So this in the turquoise is Wonderland yarns and Frabjous fibers, summer silk, color Nymph. Now, sorry that I'm looking down, I can never remember names of yarns really. So I have notes here, but also down below the screen for you are the show notes, and all that information is down there as well. So don't worry about if I like Frabjous fibers, you know, if you're not sure what that is. It's all written down below, and so you're totally covered. Yeah, so that is that Wonderland yarns. I've knit with Wonderland yarns a few times, and their yarn is really cool. Interesting bases and great colors and just kind of different and groovy, and I really like it. So I was really happy to find that, and it knit up beautifully. I think it's fun how it pooled. It's sort of darker down here, whatever. I'm down with it. I also like that because it's kind of cool. Like I have a dark gray skirt that I'd like to wear with it, and I think those sort of dark purples, sort of grays would, you know, just sort of ties in. And the orangey peachy color is color Tangerine, and it's knitting for Olive Pure Silk, also a Bourette silk. The knitting for Olive Pure Silk is actually a finer gauge slightly, so I would call it like a light fingering, where the Wonderland Frabjous fibers, Summer Silk, is more of a true fingering, maybe even a heavier fingering, but between the two of it, I think it, you know, it works out perfectly. Yeah, if you were to do it all in the knitting for Olive Pure Silk, you might need to go down a needle size and then just make up for it and with using your measuring tape to make sure that you're getting the proper width you want. I have knit this with 10 to 12 inches of positive ease because I do, sorry, it's my chair here. I do, I like a lot of ease, especially, well, this year entirely, but especially in the summer, I want airflow like that. So that's great. Yeah, so what else can I say? I said it was a contiguous top-down, knitted in the round. I have done it with a 6x2. Oh, and my son's home. It's everyone's here. We'll come back in a sec. Okay, it's all happening today. So my son was coming home between his exams just to take a break, take a breather, have a little lunch. And the rawhide that I just gave Luna to keep her from being tormented by the cat across the street, Luna put in the middle of the driveway. Oliver on a scooter hit the rawhide and tipped over. So he's fine, but we don't need a bike accident during exam month. He's got to be back at school in half an hour. We'll drive him. And it's funny, I had a sort of premonition, like, exam month, we should probably leave the bike alone. It's just too many eggs in one basket. I'm not a fan. Anyways, Oliver's fine. He'll write his exam. Luckily tomorrow he's got nothing. And he has one exam on Friday and then the weekend. But man, I'll be so glad when this is all over. Back to knitting, because that's a lot more fun. So yeah, so I'm talking about the lovely fibers in this, really great, lovely to knit with. If you were to use knitting for all of pure silk, you might need to go down in needle size. It was finer. The great thing, again, like I talked to you about before, you're basically just knitting with increases the width. So if you wanted to use knitting for all of pure silk, which is dreamy, and I'd highly recommend, you could just knit your width. You could double it, but I think that would be such a dramatically different gauge that it might not work well for the neck. But there you go. And with all my patterns, I really do hope, you know, I try to give enough detail that there's no major questions or no questions, but that you are inspired to add your own spin, twist, whatever, gauge, you name it, onto any of my patterns. So when I do design patterns, and I design patterns thoughtfully with yarns in mind, but I also am a person that has a stash and I live on a small island. So my approach to knitting anyone else's patterns is to just use what you have. And it totally works, and it can be quite interesting. That's another case in point. But we'll get to there. Gosh, I'm jumping around. So talked about the yarns here. Oh, and all my hanging up things to build on. Oh my goodness. Part of me wants to start this all over again, and part of me just thinks now that I've got to go and do the running back and forth to school, we're going to keep going and just try to get to the end. So the other one that I'm knitting, I just cast this on the other day, is this one. I thought it would be great because this is such a classic shape for me, just perfect for my wardrobe. I thought just a monochromatic in some sort of form of black, gray. And I wasn't even sure. This has also got a blue tinge to it. So it's sort of like navy. I think I could go with anything. This yarn is Plymouth Yarn Nettle Grove color gray pearl. So I guess it is a gray, but honestly, like everyone in my family has debated whether it's navy or black undertones. So that's actually pretty awesome because I love black and navy together. I think it's really cool. And also just gives you a lot more options. So this is going to be the version with all the options. As you can see, I've knitted down, I've just joined again. Like I was saying, I'll do my 13 inches, which we talked about before. Will take 6.5 days, possibly 7 down here. I also will pick up and knit the neckband. The back is sort of rolling back. There's naturally a good 2.5 inch difference between the front and the back because I have a hump. Don't want that. It's some bodies have it, some bodies don't. Some people have lovely straight backs, but I'm self-conscious, which is why, of course, I tell you every time that I talk about neck shaping. Anyways, so yeah, so this is my second version. My third version I would like to knit, like I said, with the Sandnes Garn Line Tin Lena. Again, my workhorse yarn, and these two would be machine wash and dryable. I was talking about it before, someone interrupted me. That sounded horrible. I was talking about before when we were interrupted, that I was doing sort of 6 rows, 2-row stripe here. I think I was sort of inspired by smaller stripes, but I didn't want it this small, and I didn't have enough of the knitting for olive. This one I'm pleased that it's sort of monochromatic. The next one I'm thinking I'll do striping again. I really do like this proportion on me. So I think then the Sandnes Garn Line will be sort of a beige and with thin black stripes and then black cuff and collar. What did I do for the hem? The hem, I just carried on in pattern and added the ribbing, which is 1x1 and bound off sort of in pattern, but I sort of framed it with the orange and did most of it in the turquoise. It's basically just a 1-inch hem. I didn't want anything, I wanted it to sort of just disappear into my skirt or hang loose or whatever. So that was my intention there. So the hem is sort of over an oversight. I did try to use the Italian sewn bind off on the hem, and that there was a twist to the yarn and it just kept on knotting and it was very difficult. So I did an elastic bind off, which is great. Again, the hem is a nothing on this sweater, or this tee I should say, because it'll get tucked in, it'll not, it's just kind of a nothing. So I'm totally happy with that. I did an Italian sewn bind off for the neck the first time I did the neck, and it stretched too much. I think it was cellulose fiber because of course there's no elasticity. once it sort of loosens, I think it'll keep on loosening. Probably would be refreshed when it was washed again, but again, I just don't want anything to lose shape. I think collars are really important to sit how they should and not to change, just because of course that's where the sweater starts on you and visually too. So I went back and I think in my instructions I've suggested a more sturdy bind off for this. I think I've suggested the tubular bind off or another one for here. But again, all my bind offs, especially for this sweater and a lot of my other sweaters, are to get the right balance of elasticity for functionality and stability for long-term ease, effect, something like that. So if it looks like it's so weird that I might have multiple different kinds of bind offs or any patterns, there's definitely a reason for it. You know, I do love the Italian sewn bind off. I actually find it very restful to do. I've done it here on all four, 2 sleeves edges, but that was really easy and it didn't need any more structure. Where with this, I just found that it looked like it was going to get loose very quickly over time. That said, even so, in the pattern, I do write cellulose fiber is not elastic. You may need to reinforce the neckline with a single crochet chain around it, which is really easy. And then on YouTube, I noticed a lot of the instructions have the single crochet on the seam between the collar and the yoke of the top, which would also work. But you know, that's kind of the backup. I do think with cellulose fibers, we do kind of need a backup because they don't behave the same way as traditional yarns. Also with behavior, I know people find them hard on your hands. I've been thinking a lot about that. When I knit, I don't actually tension at all. There's no yarn wrapping around anything. It never has. My hands get sweaty. That ends up just not working for me because then the yarn doesn't move. So I literally just hold the yarn in my hand and I'm a thrower. So it's, you know, I'm not the fastest knitter. I've shown my knitting before in past episodes, but maybe I should do that again in the future. Anyways, my suggestion for you, if you're ever working with cellulose fibers, to just tension minimally or not at all. You might have to have a different way of holding your yarn than you would, you know, lovely plump elastic wool. That might be the way to do it. I have no problem knitting. Right now I'm knitting exclusively, pretty much, except for one item. 50% with cellulose fibers, and I'm spending a lot of time on it with my goals, and I'm not a fast knitter, and I don't get hand cramping. That said, I remember the yarn that was probably considered one of the ones that was most known for being hard to work with, and I tried in my early days of knitting, and that was, what is it, the Euroflax or something like that. And I have some in my stash, and I've actually just tied it with a possible pattern that I admired, and I can't remember which one it was, but it was funny. I tied it in my Ravelry thing with my stash to a pattern, and I tied those together, and I thought, I'll be so interested. Maybe I'll be eating humble pie when I knit with the Euroflax. Maybe that will give me hand cramping and stuff, and my theory of just little to no tensioning might fly to the wayside. But that's my theory so far. I'll keep you posted. I hope it works. It works for me so far. And there's nothing worse than being uncomfortable in your knit, because knitting should always be fun. So I think we can move away from the mango tee. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait. Well, I'm wearing it. It's really lovely. And I'll have the black gray one next. And yeah, all ready for the warmer weather. Other finished objects are this. I don't know if this is officially a finished object or not. I reknit the Chalice Vine tee. I didn't put a lot of thought into this. It was sort of one of those I was inspired by the colors and inspired by a lady on Instagram called Margot Chen, and how, you know, her sort of gradients flow in and out of the base colors and all things good like that. So I knit this up. I did use unusual. I used a yarn that I bought that I loved the color, which is this color here. Like, look at how it glows. It's so cool. And that's how I saw it at a Rhinebeck stand. But it's actually a yarn made for weaving. And I thought, what's the difference? Well, the difference is there's like zero drape. Well, there's, I mean, you can see there's drape. I have washed and blocked it, but it's not a lot of drape. And it's really noticeable when you put it on with the sleeves, because the sleeves, this design was meant to have full sleeves and long sleeves. So when I knit it with this weaving yarn, and this yarn is called, again, because I can never remember, Comfort Cloth Weaving 10-mile line, color leaf. There you go. But I mean, that, look at the color and how it glows. I love it. Anyways, it makes these sleeves like poof out in a weird way. So my thought there would be to basically just sew it in a little bit, like basically reduce it by an inch or an inch and a half by sewing it in. This is not a precious project to me. This is because it started with just, it was all about the process, not about the product. And I do love that. Like, it's just like where creativity takes me. So I might just end up steeking this and just narrowing this tiny little sleeve cuff. I could take the sleeve cuff out, but there's just fundamentally too much fabric here. I mean, ideally, you would literally take it off the top, but that'll look really silly because there would be a break in the pattern. And actually, even more ideally would have been that I recognized this while I was knitting it, that I'd want a tighter sleeve. But I did kind of recognize this when I was knitting it, and I knew I was running out of yarn. And so if I reduced the sleeve, I recognized it at the point of sleeve separation. If I reduced the sleeve stitches, which would have probably looked better, but put it on the body, I knew I wouldn't have enough yarn. So I think I made the right call. We'll see. I'll fiddle around with these sleeves. Again, not a precious product at all. I did love, oh, this is my pattern, the Chalice Fine pattern, which again is meant to have long full sleeves and yada, 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 and not to be maybe knitted with a weaving yarn. But again, I don't know how to have it backwards. I don't think it's the end of the world. Okay. Okay, so it's been a day since we last chatted. That was quite an afternoon. When Oliver came out from his room, it was sort of clear that he had broken a bone in his foot, one of his toes, if not multiple. And so Oliver has a great relationship with the teachers at his school and was able to text the coordinator for the IB program. And so she just said, go to the hospital, get it sorted out. And we did that. She and Oliver worked out an alternative solution for that missed exam. I don't think it's a negative thing. We sent in all the paperwork to her to forward on to the IB people, wherever they are, to prove that he was in the hospital. Anyways, it was quite a day. It was a day. But all manageable. We'll be driving Oliver to his exams from now on, because he's not even, can't really, well, he could go on a scooter, but his mobility is kind of screwed up a bit. He can't put any weight on it, whatever. He's got a boot, he's got crutches. He's not keen on the crutches. I think it'll take practice. Yeah, so I was tempted to restart and film the whole thing again, but to be honest, you can't call it boring this episode, that's for sure. So I think I'll keep it in. There was actually some really good points that I made, and I don't think that I would, they were kind of off the cuff, but with regard to the knits, and I don't know if I would hit them again. And I think also repeating myself, it would not be as thorough or whatever, or my thoughts would be less. So let's keep it in. It's kind of exciting. A day in the life. And yeah, so let's get back to knitting. That's the fun stuff, the easy stuff, the less dramatic stuff. And yeah, okay. So I just wanted to finish up my thoughts on the Chalice Fine tee that I was knitting. I see this as a canvas. I don't see this as a precious project. I see this as just being creative and just a creative process knit, and just see where it leads me. So like I said, I'm going to tighten up the sleeves underneath. And the other thing I was thinking I'd really like to do, oh, look at the sun, so great today. The other thing, when I was knitting it, I had a stitch marker that was clear, but like an aqua, like a clear aqua color. And it looked so good with this yarn. So I was thinking it'd be really fun is to try a little embroidery on this. I'd like it to be totally different from the motif here, because then I think it would be competing, where I see this again as a canvas, and I'd like to maybe do something all in one color, all in this turquoise. I'm going to leave this here so that we can kind of keep the color fresh in mind, and all in this sort of shade. Now, this is Hillesvåg Ask. I'm not sure if it would be actually this yarn. It totally could be. I don't know. Do I want something with a different texture, because this is all quite sort of toothy? Do I want something with a bit of a sheen for the embroidery so it's totally different? But I could see the embroidery. I'd like to use, I'll show you in a second which one, but I'd like it to almost overlap the color work a bit so that it does look layered. I don't want it to look overly intentional or like the plan, the original plan, because it totally wasn't. I think this will be really kind of groovy. So the book that I found really inspiring when it came out, and still love to flip through it, is this book called Embroidery on Knits. And this is the author, Judit Gummlich. The ideas and everything are amazing. And in it, I believe she even includes some paper that you can trace and put over your knit so that you can embroider into that. And then I believe there's paper, and I think I have some downstairs, that you can put the tracing on, put on your knit, and then embroider over so that you can stay in pattern. And then it'll dissolve, I believe. I'll have to look into that, but that's what I think is going to happen. And the piece that I wanted to do was the fern, because it's more delicate and it's completely a contrast to the color work here. So it's not going to compete. It's going to be something totally different. I want it to be something that is one color, again, so that it's interesting, but it's not too fussy. Yeah, so that's the idea. So that's her beautiful work. And I'd like to put one on the front and possibly even another on the back. And we'll see. But again, this is not a precious knit in my mind. This is fun. This is creative. This is artistic. This is a process project for me. And I like that because it can push me a little bit further. It can teach me things about, you know, why weaving yarn is weaving yarn and not knitting yarn. But I know you can weave with knitting yarn, and you can clearly knit with weaving yarn, but I get a better idea of the principles behind the two. Playing with the ombre coloration. Did I say what this was? I'm not sure. It was so scatty yesterday, but I think I haven't. So I want to say that this is Freia Handpaint Yarns, Ombre, and an ombre. The yarn weight is a sport, and the color is Nymph. No, I'm sorry, Aztec. I was reading, confusing the line above. And like I said yesterday, all the information is down below. So if I garble the words, which I just did, it's all clearly written down below. Yeah, so that yarn was really fun to play with, and I was really keen to give it a whirl. I'll definitely add more to my stash for future inspiration. But yeah, I just think, like, look at when the sun, like those colors just are so cool together. So I'm gonna play with that. If anything comes of it or how I get along, I'll keep you posted. But that's not, there's no timing for that. That's just, again, an art process, creative, I don't know, whatever. So there's no deadline or anything in my mind. So let's talk about this now. This is the other finished object. This is the Nordic Bloom Vest sleeveless cardigan. Yeah, I used the sleeveless cardigan pattern, which was in Nordic Knits in a line of publication, but I heavily, well, not heavily, I modified it because I didn't include the steek stitches, the steek panel in the middle, and just made it a pullover vest. That's more my style. I was also limited in yarn, so I tried to sort of, you know, I didn't have enough for all the button bands and stuff like that. I also wouldn't have wanted to steek it because I don't like, I would have always worn it closed. I wanted it as a summer tank, so I always wanted to wear it closed. You could wear it closed with the buttons, but I don't want it pulling. I could have done it without steeking it, actually cutting it. And that's what my original plan was. But then when I realized I was really short on yarn, I just thought this was a better way to go. And it worked out perfectly in my mind. So it's knit bottom up, super easy. My size, which I think was maybe the third size, but basically had 8 pattern repeats was the suggestion in the pattern plus the steep panel. So that was super easy for me to modify because, yeah, 8. Because basically it was just 4 patterns on the front, 4 patterns on the back. I cast all the stitches. I didn't do it flat. I did it in the round and then just worked the 8 pattern repeats up to here. From there, the pattern tells you where to, it tells you where and how to do the sleeve stitches, or, you know, separate for sleeves or not sleeves. And then it will also tell you where to do the decreases for the shaping for the V neckline in the pattern. So I just followed that. It was really easy. So really minimal modifications. The only thing that I had to basically freewheel or whatever come up with was the picking up stitches around the neck, which I didn't think was really a big deal. I followed her suggested pickup rate, which I think was 4 out of every 5 stitches, where I usually do 3 out of every 4, but you know, nothing flares, it all lays beautifully. And then the only thing that I did is I made sure there was a central stitch right at the bottom of the V, which I used as the anchor for a central double decrease to create that, sorry, if I come close to you, you can see it, that decrease point, which then brings the neckline in beautifully and lays flat and, you know, reinforces that vertical line down. So that's really great. I love it. I used Sandnes Garn Line held double to get the gauge because it's quite a big gauge. I want to say around 19 stitches, maybe, I think it's 19 stitches per 4 inches. And that worked beautifully. Again, I was working with my stash. So I had quite a bit of this linen color, which I really love, and I knit a summer top in it last year, but because I had a summer top in that linen stitch from last year, I wanted a different main color top. And I had enough of green, but the green, I had 2 colors of green. So you can see here, I think they marled beautifully together. The green is 9062 and 8561, and that's what I used throughout. There was one called Pine, and it's more the sort of less aqua, more classic green. And I had less of that. So when I knit the whole product together, I knew I just didn't have enough for the neckband and the sleeve cuffs. So I just used the other green I had and held it double, which I think is actually kind of cool. I like how it works. The one thing that I did kind of mess up on is the shoulder seaming, which you're supposed to do with a Kitchener stitch. I sometimes get RS and WS, so right side and wrong side, mixed up and confused. I think it's just a silly problem with my thoughts or whatever. I was also relaxed when I was doing it. When I knit other people's patterns, I just it's sort of like going for a lovely ride. So I don't really question it. I don't really think too hard on it. And so basically what happened is I seamed this inside out. I don't think it's terrible. It doesn't really bother me. I certainly wouldn't rip it out. I don't really care. I think actually what I've learned from this is that could actually be an interesting feature in future patterns. And you could even, if I get closer, you could even like thread a ribbon or another yarn through it. Like you could make that something kind of neat and special too. So accidents can be totally helpful and productive for the creative process. And I'm not into chasing perfection, so that's that. I'm really keen on it. I like the line. It actually is kind of flattering, I think, to create the shoulder, a bit of a shaping. I also was worried because this yarn is doubled and it is relatively heavy when doubled, that the Kitchener stitch might not be enough support, and I was actually tempted to do a 3 needle bind off, but I didn't want the bulk. So if I feel that this is pulling, because it's so clear how it was Kitchener stitched, I could really easily reinforce that too. So never a major problem, really. That's the great thing about knitting, you know, just a little pivot, a little personalization. So yeah, I'm really pleased with it. What else do I have to say about it? I think that's it. The linen color, which I'm calling linen, I'm not sure if it's called linen, but is 3820. But again, all the information is down below for you so that you don't have to write anything down. Yeah, so that's another finished object. 2 more really quick finished objects. I finished the March, I believe, version of, let's see, where's the light? Yeah, of Summer Lee's Color Cuff Club. I think it's really pretty. I used scraps for the colors. I have no idea what they are, but the main sock is using Magpie Fiber Swanky Sock. Totally one of my favorite sock yarns. Color Follow You Into the Dark. Oh, that's funny. I'm using the other half for the next sock I'm working on. Isn't that interesting? And then I just wrote down 2 mystery skeins. I have no idea. These are just, leftover balls, little scraps. So yeah, so that worked out really well, as always. Very keen on that. Summer Lee is really fun and great. I haven't cast on the April one. I think they're really cute. They just didn't get me totally excited at the time. But I'll show you another socks that I've cast on. The other things that I did finish were just this Biscotte yarn socks that I knit, just a vanilla sock pattern, and the yarn is the Bis-Sock Color Sweet Dream. I love the colors in there. Isn't that fun? Anyway, so just a simple sock that I knit the cuff in another sort of scrap of yarn. I think it's a merino single, so definitely fine for the cuff, but not for the actual foot itself. And then knit 104 rows down to here. So that gives me, my foot needs 64 rounds. So, and I like an cut in afterthought heel. So if I do 104 rounds, I just go up 60, 6 safety markers here. So every 10 rounds, I put in a light bulb stitch marker. And then when I want to cut it in, I just go back up. So include the 4 and then up 6 and then cut it in here. It really helps. So I left the stitch markers in because I think that a lot of sock knitters know this, but there's a lot of new knitters out there. So when there's a good tip that makes your life so much easier, I think it's great to pass it on. Also, when I cut in, I knit 8 rounds because I have a very deep heel. And so what I did is on when I picked up the stitches on one of the first 2 stitches here, I put another safety light bulb in so that I could very easily count up the 8 rows and then do the decreases. I think socks are very pleasurable to knit and I like to do them when I'm talking to people. So the more quick, easy tricks to help me not make major mistakes, I love and use. So that is my quick tip for any new sock knitter. Light bulb stitch markers are a very good friend and really help keep you on track. So that's that. So I think that's all of the finished objects. It really was quite a productive last 2 weeks where, like I said before, the 2 weeks before that were kind of, I was in very much middling. I forgot this. This became a finished object last night, but it wasn't when I first chatted with you. And this is my 3rd version of what I'm calling the purple haze sweater. This is not purple, as you can see. But my initial 2 were purple versions, and some have sleeves on them. So the idea of this pattern is it's a really great base pattern for bulky weight yarns. The other 2 were knit with like Big Birdie and Big Kumo from La Vienna Made. Big Birdie is from Bainbridge Island. Oh my gosh, the Lamb and Kid. I'm so sorry. Gosh. So this is actually done with a mixture of yarns. Primarily the 2 were really great. There's like a boucle and mohair mix from Chelsea Yarns, and then I held that with my what I call workhorse yarns, which this is Holst Garn Supersoft, and this is called Dark Olive. So that's just basically to keep the shape. It's the workhorse yarn. It's just sort of like the foundation so that it doesn't bag or grow or whatever. And then I held it with mohair and a boucle yarn. These are all from Chelsea Yarns. And you can see, so Christina from Chelsea Yarns, she does what's called a duet, and they come together. So this one is called the Camouflage Duette. So that's really cool. With this, I love that yarn, just really cool. And Christina's yarns have great colors. So she's a beautiful hand dyer from New Jersey. Anyways, with this pattern, which will probably come out maybe late August, basically for the fall, I knit it 3 times. And why did I knit it 3 times? I wanted to give options and I wanted to show options. So there's 2 hem options, one round, one with a split hem. I wanted it to be a vest and a sweater, and I wanted it to have 2 lengths. So like this is the tunic length, and then there's a cropped length, and I wanted it to also have 2 neck options. So I knit the turtleneck twice, and then there's also sort of more of a lower crew neck. That thereby giving you all sorts of options to make whatever you want. And again, riff off of it, do it totally different. But it's just basically a foundation design, foundation pattern for bottom up, drop sleeve, and then it has this lovely quadruple decrease stitch that goes up the shoulders to create lovely shoulder shaping, which will hang similar to this, but this had different shoulder shaping. And then the neck here, however you want to finish it. So yeah, super simple. I think this is like a 14 stitch gauge. It did, I mean, last night I knit the whole 6-inch collar. It works up pretty fast. It's very satisfying. I love it. We'll talk more about it, and I'll have the 2 other versions with me next time we talk about it, I guess closer to when the pattern will release. But I'll be sending this to the tech editor probably in a week or so. And then testing this over the summer. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. I really love it. The yarn, again, from Christina is really beautiful. If you could only, can you see the textures? Yeah, if I hold it up, you can see yeah, there we go with the sunlight on it. So there's lovely little knobbly bits and colors and splotches of everything. And I love green. I love sort of a camouflage color. I think it's great. It goes with everything. And yeah, so I will block this now. This is unblocked. I literally just finished that last night. So I'll have to change my notes for you when I post this, that this is another finished object. We've talked about the mango tea, which is my design, the one that I was working on. I took it to the hospital. See, I've recorded this part twice now, and I can't remember what I've said on this one, but I took it to the hospital after we chatted, and when, you know, the shit hit the fan. It didn't really hit the fan. It wasn't really that stressful. It's just an unfortunate accident and an unfortunate time. Anyway, so I took it with me to the hospital, definitely got my 2 inches in. The yarn ball that I was working on, I noticed it's a lot more sort of thin and thick areas. I'm not sure if I love that, but again, like I said before, I'm not chasing perfection. This is not, you know, whatever. And to be honest, if for a summer top to be a bit sort of, have a bit of a voile section or 2, it'd actually kind of be interesting and nice. Anyways, so I worked on that again, getting my 2 inches a day, hopefully. 2 inches on that small stitch and that 48-inch diameter, we'll see. But that is still the plan. And then the final thing, okay, we've almost made it. Holy crow, I didn't think we'd get here. The final thing is the quilty cabin socks that I've started this month, not summer lees. It's pretty hard to see the little quilt motif in there, but I think it's really fun. Maybe if my main color was a bit lighter, you could see it better, but I think it's pretty. I think it's fun. And these are the quilty cabin socks. They are designed by Crooked River Crochet, and the designer, that's what's on Ravelry, but the designer on the package, or the thing, said knitwear pattern by horse feather fiber. So I might have to change that because something is wrong. But anyways, it's a lovely, lovely pattern, quilty cabin socks. And I am using, like I just realized, the other half of that Magpie Fibers, Follow Me Into the Dark, lovely color. And I'm using one of Gina from formerly Skein Cocaine, one of her one of a kind, which I think is so pretty. Look at all those colors. And I just thought that was sort of, in my mind, the color of quilts. When I lived in New Brunswick, when I went to university in Sackville, New Brunswick at Mount Allison, there was a lady who collected antiques. She was very stylish, and she had a lot of quilts, old cotton quilts. and I enjoyed purchasing from her. So I had, for a little while, in my early 20s, I was kind of collecting cotton quilts, and these were definitely the colors. Really pretty. That was really fun. I'm sure there still is, but there was a lot of amazing antiques in that part of New Brunswick at the time. I think there was a lot of, there was a huge rush of people moving to New Brunswick, I think, at the turn of the 20th century, and what brought with them interesting things. So when I was another tangent. When I was studying fine arts, and so I really enjoyed photography and still photography, like still life, not really life. There was another antique shop that was more home architectural pieces. So there was the lovely heating grates, doorknobs, keyhole fobs, rosettes for the ceiling, things like that. And the fellow who owned that warehouse, it was a total warehouse in the area. I would walk over, didn't have a car. It was really fun. He was so nice, and he would let me borrow interesting pieces, just metal, again, like I said, doorknobs, or like the rosette behind the doorknob. Skeleton keys are always so pretty too. Light bulb fixtures, you know, just sort of the beautifully metal with raised patterns that just, you'd screw in a light bulb. Those were really gorgeous. Anyways, a million years ago. How did I get on that topic? Oh yeah. Anyways, there's a lot of amazing antiques around when I was living in New Brunswick, and I really had fun either collecting a bit or just borrowing to photograph, and all those textures and stuff, and the black and white photographs were just gorgeous. Anyways, okay, wow, enough tangents. We've got through my list, thank goodness. Yeah, what else to say? I don't really have any videos or anything for you. It's other than that one that I promised of the whale kite. I think it's really cool. So I'll end with a whale kite, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Then we'll be halfway through the exam month, and hopefully nothing else major happens. And I hope everything's well with you, and your knitting keeps you company and gives you lots of pleasure and joy. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. So until then, thanks. Bye.